Was he?
Yeah, he's hanging a fireman's helmet out, like a tree that was like a tribute to the firemen.
He must have got ambitious because he said he was gonna be done Friday.
He's still out there today.
I have 3:30. Before we call this meeting to order, we're gonna do the environmental committee first, then we'll go into the parks committee, because this committee serves as both. So with that said, I now call the Hawkins County Environmental Committee to order, and ask the Madam Secretary to call the roll, please.
Danny Alice,
Here.
Jeff Barrett,
Here.
Rick Brewer,
Here.
Linda Davis,
Here.
Raymond Jesse,
Here.
Hannah Speaks,
Here.
Donnie Talley.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, all members are present.
Thank you. Let the records reflect that, so we have a quorum. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes? The last time this committee met was December 2016, and Commissioner Brewer and myself, I think, were the only two here. So,
After looking over the minutes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
motion made to approve the minutes as well. Will I hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, let it know, saying aye. Opposed likewise. We will, I guess, recognize Mr. Vince Fishner first, because I'd say his schedule is busy concerning the stormwater as the manager, and I think we might have a couple of contracts or something you might want us to look at or something.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I assume y'all asked me down here to explain the program.
Yes, sir.
We've got so many new members.
Yes.
The stormwater program for Hawkins County is one of those unfunded mandates by the federal and state government. Starting back in 2003, they mandated that they call it small municipal storm sewer systems, be established for the urbanized areas throughout the country. And part of Hawkins County falls under the Kingsport urbanized area. It's an area of about 22 square miles around the corporate limits of the Hawkins County side of Kingsport, Churchill, Mount Carmel, and a small portion of Seguinsville. When the program started, I believe there was a Commissioner Messick, I believe, started out the program, and then I took over in 06 or 07. The program is, we have to issue permits for any non-agriculture site of an acre or more that's disturbing ground of an acre or more. During that time, we've issued only one permit for the Dollar General on Carter's Valley Road up above Churchill. I monitor the area periodically, see if there's anything going on that needs a permit. Do what the state requires us to do an annual report, keep up with what they want done and do it. Part of that is we have to take samples of 3 streams in that area, pull water quality samples, 10 samples a year from one stream, do 3 streams in 3 years. Pull the samples, take them to the lab, have them analyzed and record the results, keep them in a file and submit that with the annual report to TDEC. And in a nutshell, that's the program. Are there any questions?
Back in, 2016, there was two creeks, Alexander Creek and Smith Creek, that was, previously sampled.
Yes, sir. Now they've added Horde Creek. Up till this permit cycle, we had a new permit cycle that started in September 16. Up till then, we only had sample creeks that they identified as the urbanized area was causing the pollution. Now they've removed that, and any stream that's polluted, we have to sample. And that's the reason Horde Creek was added to the list. I sampled Smith Creek in 17, Alexander this year, and I'll do Horde Creek next year. We do have excessive levels of E. coli in those streams, but for the most part, they're narrow streams.
E. coli a lot of times will consist of, animals.
Could be deer,
Yes.
if it's big enough, and there is a large population of whitetail in that area.
Okay, do you need this committee to do anything, give you your blessings on anything?
Not at this time. As part of the 16 permit, TDEC came out with some rules on permanent stormwater, is what they call them. Rules that any permittee that was doing construction and the runoff from that construction site, they mandated that there could be no color contrast from what's coming off the construction site where the stream it's going into, the color of it upstream and downstream. The Home Builders Association of Tennessee filed suit, said it was too strong. Sierra Club said it wasn't strong enough. And got a message within the past 2 weeks that they've reached a settlement, and TDEC's coming out with new rules. Don't know what the rules will say. It's got to go through the rulemaking process. Once that's done, we will have to implement whatever they tell us to implement. Normally, rulemaking process is generally a six month to a year process, so it'll be a while.
Well, when you get the information up to date, if you could share it with us, then it might merit having another meeting
Yes, sir.
to look at it.
Very definitely.
Okay.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting, it was mentioned that sometime in the future that we might need to consider a budget for this purpose. And, you know, where are we at on that?
We've got a small budget. I think it's less than 20. I believe it's less than 25,000.
The budget for the fiscal year 18-19 for a total is $16,300.
That covers his salary?
That covers his salary, and all the related benefits like social security, unemployment, and so forth. Some testing and permits and
The permits,
First Tennessee Development District, if we have to have anything from them, some educational equipment or announcements and educational materials as mandated.
and the TDEC fee, our permit fee is $3,600. So that's in that budget. They charge us to do what they mandate us to do.
Right. I'd like to say this also. I appreciate Mr. Fishner doing this for the county, and we don't, if you're not familiar what this could cost the county, we're very fortunate to have to do this, and I'd like to personally thank him for the job that he's doing.
Thank you.
Ask you to just please stay on if you will.
A little while longer.
I think the committee, we're all in agreement with that. Thank you, Commissioner Brewer.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for Mr. Fishner? Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you. May I depart?
Sir?
Am I
Yes.
finished?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
guess next on the agenda is the, Jackson Law. I've got several different printouts on it and, some questions that needs to be answered, so I'm gonna recognize our county attorney to explain to us what our contract, what we currently have in place, and then we'll discuss the Jackson Law and what we can and cannot do.
All right, Mr. Chairman. This was actually the so-called host amendment on the landfill agreement with the Carter Valley landfill, August 17, 2001. And I'm not gonna read everything in it because it's been just some while, but with respect to the Jackson Law, I would point out this language, which I think is very appropriate. It says that in defining the property that we're talking about, the Carter Valley landfill, it's the entire 362 acres of land that they own, attached to Exhibit A. And it also says that it also includes any additional lands that may be brought into the landfill later on and for expansions, either vertically, laterally, or otherwise. I think that you look at that clause and then you look later on under the paragraph of term on page 13, it says the term of this agreement shall commence on the date signed, and it shall, for as long as the Carter Valley landfill and any vertical or laterally expansion, increased lands, whatever, are in operation, unless there's a notice for a 2-year get out. That doesn't really pertain to what we're talking about. Then, this language, which I think is controlling, it says, quote, Hawkins County agrees, however, not to enact any laws or regulations mandating requirements for operation of the Carter Valley landfill as expanded and so forth, more stringent than required by federal or state law. Now, there's only one way, in my opinion, that could be interpreted. That means we can't do anything more than whatever the law, state, federal, is at the time this contract was entered into. And of course, if we enacted the Jackson Law, we would be in violation of that provision because we would be making it more stringent than it is under federal and state law. And of course, we signed this contract, we're bound by it, and that's what it says. So in my opinion, the contract prevents us from taking any action to make it any rules, regulations, or whatever more stringent than the federal or state law was at the time this contract was entered and presumably thereafter.
Now, let's talk inside the 360 acres perimeter you said.
Well, that's included plus any expansions in the language that may be done, as it says in here, by BFI or its successors, assignees, so forth, affiliates. So what it's really saying is that Carter Valley landfill, with the 362 acres, plus any expansions they may make in the future, as long as this contract is still in effect, we've agreed that we will not enact any law that's more stringent than the federal or state law requires them to expand or do whatever they want to do with that landfill. As a matter of fact, this came up several years ago, and we were discussing it, and we got a letter from them on this. And they said we can't do it, and they're correct, in my opinion.
We're gonna follow the parliamentary procedure. Anyone wants to speak?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
question I have is, and that's what I need to ask Mr. Phillips, is the way I was understanding this Jackson Law, that it did not affect any existing landfill, was what I was.
Well, I assume, now I don't know, but I assume we're meeting here today because they are expanding or opening up new areas or something with the landfill. I don't know that, but we have not enacted the Jackson Law, and this language in this contract says we can't do that, but we'll be in violation of that clause I just read. Or any other measure that would make it more stringent.
I can understand if this Jackson Law pertained to existing landfills, but what I was told is this does not affect any existing landfill, this Jackson Law, and And,
Well, it's-
that's what we need to know right there, I guess.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I think you're exactly right. But we can't do it because that's there and in the contract, we said we would not.
I understand, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I understand we cannot enact, according to the contract, anything that would restrict them.
Make it
If
more
this
stringent
Jackson
than what the
law,
law is.
if this Jackson law is not affecting an existing landfill, then how is that restricting them? I mean, that's my question.
I'm not sure I understand it,
Well,
but basically,
what he's
we
saying,
didn't enact the Jackson law, and I'm saying, because of this contract, it says that we can't do anything, because that would make it more stringent on them for any expansion or any other.
Would you reread that phrase? I didn't understand it, in that contract. I understand the contract, we could not enact any law that would make it more stringent on them. Is that what that says?
I'll read it again. Hawkins County agrees, however, not to enact any laws or regulations mandating requirements for operation of the Carter Valley landfill as previously defined, those acres plus any expansion, more stringent than required by federal or state law.
I think that answered what I was asking, and I guess the question we need to,
Well,
No,
I guess I need to know, why are we here? Somebody wanting the Jackson law enacted to
this,
apply to the
this
existing
is,
landfill?
this is what I was told, you know, this, if we enact the Jackson law, the county commission would have say-so as whether or not another landfill could be located within Hawkins County. It
Well-
would not affect the existing landfill.
Well, but you can't do that with respect to the Carter Valley landfill as may be expanded, because that's what this contract deals with. I see what you're saying now, yeah. I'm talking about the Carter Valley landfill.
What we're talking about, the way I understand it, has no effect on the Carter Valley.
Okay.
They're already there, so
It's already there.
Yeah, it's already there, and they may expand, or whatever, and we still can't do anything because we've agreed not to by this. Yeah, I agree with you, this is a Hawkins. I didn't know there was another landfill out there trying to get in, I don't.
Well,
well, it's self-explanatory, it says if adopted, it provides that no new construction will be enacted for a landfill without approval of the county legislative body. 2/3 majority, it takes 2/3 to adopt it, 2/3 to
Yeah,
allow
but
it
see,
to come in.
the Carter Valley landfill could add expansion and new construction, and we couldn't apply it to that because we contractually agreed
Right.
we would not. That's what I'm saying.
We've got a lady that's wanting to speak, Teresa Greer.
Yes,
Yes.
this law is, that we would like to enact is simple. It does not affect Republic, the Carter's Valley landfill, excuse me. This is to say that, Republic couldn't, or any person couldn't go to Kempler or Mooresburg and buy up 300 or 400 acres of property and start a new landfill without the county commission. We all agree we need a place to put our household garbage. This isn't anything against Republic, because this doesn't affect them. This affects the rest of the county and anybody that might want to come in and open a landfill in the future. And if everybody has their packets and they would look at the counties that have already enacted this, it just makes good sense that the county commission has control over our community and what happens and what's dumped here. And so that's what we're requesting, is that this committee pass this legislation and allow the full commission to vote on it.
As long as it's not an expansion of the Carter Valley landfill, then this contractual provision would prevent that. If it's a whole new group seeking to create a landfill somewhere else, it's has nothing to do with Carter Valley, and they haven't sold it to Carter Valley, didn't sell it to them out of the Carter, anything like that, then that's a different matter entirely. I was under the impression that apparently there was some objection to Carter's Valley expanding now or in the future, but if they did, we could not enact it as to them.
How long is that contract for?
Well, it says as long as they remain operating.
Can they transfer that to new ownership?
It's been transferred a couple times.
It's possible they could try to convey their interest to someone else, and if they did, it's still part of the quote Carter's Valley landfill, you see. It'd have to be a totally different landfill for this not to apply, with not their ownership or conveyance or whatever.
But that was just, their 360 acres, they, Republic, or they couldn't expand and buy more property.
Way out.
Well, they said they could,
Carter's Valley.
part of this says they can't expand that, and that's
Well,
part
they
of the
would have
Carter's
to
Valley
have,
landfill.
I think they'd have to have approval,
Well, they'd have to have proof from the state and whatever,
yes.
but we couldn't enact it because of that clause in here under the Jackson law if it was part of the Carter's Valley landfill expansion as
This
opposed
isn't
to some other
affecting
new landfill.
This is not affecting them. They're
I
under
agree.
the guidance of TDEC, and they will answer to TDEC.
Yes.
Right, I mean, they still have to meet all of the requirements, that we're not taking, just saying we can't enact a new requirement against them, including their expansion, if that would be the case of the Carter Valley landfill.
But now could they move like to Mooresburg and open up the same, as the same people?
Not the way I understand
That would be stretching pretty far there, I'm not sure you could do that. It has, this contract pertains to the Carter Valley landfill, so I guess it's got to be connected, presumably, from the original site, presumably. I mean, that was the only interpretation I could say. I mean, you couldn't have the whole county and call it Carter Valley landfill. I don't believe that would work.
Thank Commissioner Speaks, or Hannah, Valerie, I'm sorry, I'll get it right here in a minute. Commissioner Goins.
I was just gonna say, that I thought, my interpretation was that Carter's Valley could only expand through the 360 acres, not any additional properties. Is that the way you interpret that?
Well, they say in here, including any future expansion, so that there's some question of whether that would apply only to the 362 or to surrounding land that was connected to the original landfill.
But
So
not
I'm not sure I can give you a clear answer on that at this time, but.
Because when these ladies came to me a couple of months ago about this, they were very concerned because of the drinking water and people that have wells and things in Carter's Valley, and a lot of cancer has cropped up, as we know, it's cropped up in a lot of places. And
But
so,
they're supposed to meet stringent testing, and of course, that's beyond our jurisdiction, but.
right, so the reason that we wanted to do this and to bring this before the committee is because we wanted to try to make sure that they didn't prop landfills up in other places and possibly put more folks at risk.
I understand.
So,
But this contract pertains to Carter Valley land, as may be expanded. Now, as I say, there's a question there of whether that would mean beyond the 362, but connected to the 362, or whether it'd be more limited to just that. I'm not sure I could give you a clear answer on that, but no question, at the very least, it goes to 362.
I have a lady that's wanting to speak.
I'm Eileen Queener, and my question is, if they decided they wanted to purchase 5 or 10 or 20,000 acres adjacent to Carter's Valley, would we have any say-so about that?
Well,
It
that's,
sounds like they could expand it as
Yeah.
they will
The
and
language
succeed
is-
in all of Hawkins County.
the language is not clear other than to say that the contract does apply not only to the 362, but to quote, future expansions. And so the issue, if that arose, would be whether or not future expansion is limited to the 362 or not. And I can't give you a clear answer on that at this time. It may or it may not.
Chair recognizes the lady.
Hello, I'm Nancy Bell. I believe I just read that TDEC just turned down an upward expansion for,
Well, that's fine. If they turn it down, then
yeah, so a lot of
That's the
this
end of
is
the
in TDEC's hands. But I think one of the big motivations was recent articles about industrialized states sending their waste to southern states because they have open land and they generally have lower incomes. And so it's a good place to dump. I don't want Hawkins County to become a dumping ground. I don't want any of Tennessee to become a dumping ground. So I think it's serious for going into the future to think of what kind of land we want to be, what kind of county and state we want to be. So that's a lot of the motivation. Thank you.
And make sure you understand, now, this is just whether or not we would have any say so. They still have to meet all the state and federal requirements, no matter what.
I have the results here where TDEC denied on 3 or 4 different things. Well, they were cited on 4 different things. They were denied the application on on what they had submitted for. I think one of them was raising the height of it overall, and a couple of the leach ponds might have been leaking and overflowing. So TDEC is on top of it. They were self-reporting. Give these men somebody credit. They called it in that morning, in April, and before the end of the day, TDEC was down there taking pictures, and I have what the pictures they were taking and why they were denied. So TDEC is on top of it and doing what we might not can do. But I'm still like the audience, it's the clarification on coming outside the existing property right now. And your answer was that they could?
Now, are you talking about expanding beyond 362?
Yes, if they bought more property tomorrow.
Of course, as I say, they can buy the property they want, but if they don't meet the federal and state requirements in the first instance, it's dead in the water, whether we have any say so or not.
Right.
So it depends, it's probably a factual situation to determine that, have they developed as far as they can develop with the 362, and they want to continue the service, they're going to have to go out and get a adjoining crop. I mean, it just depends on a lot of factors, and I'm not sure I can give you a clear-cut answer at this time.
Scott, is that right?
Yes.
What is Scott, help me with your last name.
It's Scott McConnell, I'm the division manager at the Carter Valley Landfill. This is Derek Bouchard, my environmental manager.
Scott, what's the projected life on the landfill today?
We're looking at close to 80 more years.
Yeah, it's, projected life of a landfill is a complex calculation. Depends how much waste you bring in, how tightly you pack the waste, and what kind of vertical settlement you see, which is a product of the waste stream. Right now, at our current tonnage, we're probably somewhere between 87 to 113 years.
So you're not looking to expand at this time?
Actually, we submitted an application for a vertical expansion of the landfill this fall.
Within the 362 or beyond?
It's strictly vertical expansion. We're actually reducing footprint by 1.5 acres.
Oh, okay. They're small.
The vertical expansion component is actually secondary to management factors.
The vertical expansion doesn't involve new land, right?
Right, correct. What we're basically doing is we're raising the base grade of the landfill. It's currently permitted for us to cut approximately 20 feet into bedrock, fill that with clay liner, and then build the cell structure, which is HDPE, various other layers of impermeable material. We're raising that up so we don't have to blast into too much rock. This is a limestone karst topography area. When you blast rock, there's potential for fracture. We've done a very in-depth design hydro study of Carter Valley Landfill, probably the most intense in the state. There's no karst features on our site, but I don't really like blasting if I don't have to. So we're going to raise the base grades up out of the rock. And the landfill is currently permitted for a 3-to-1 with benches. If you've ever been by the landfill, every 30 vertical feet it kicks in 10 feet. We'll remove that and it'll be 3-to-1 straight slope. The 3-to-1 with bench design isn't very effective for a landfill. As the waste decays, you get differential settlement, and you start getting stormwater intrusion into the hill. A 3-to-1 straight slope is a lot easier to maintain. That's the only reason we're going for vertical, is to go to a straight slope, which is a lot easier for us to control.
Did I understand it correctly where I read that the overall height would be 46 more additional feet?
Yes, only on future cells. The current existing landfill will not be modified. In the future cells, we will not remove as much base grade, and we'll build in 3-to-1, and the final height will be approximately 45 to 50 feet higher. That's currently in review with TDEC. They have submitted their first pass of completeness review. We've responded to those comments. Responded about 2 weeks ago. referenced it as incomplete.
Yeah.
I would disagree with George's terminology on that one, but regardless, it's part of the process. It's more or less a back and forth 45 days to get him what he wants to see from a documentation and figure standpoint. And then we move into the technical review, which can be anywhere from 6 to 12 months.
For the record, Scott, I'd like to say thank you for your all's commitment on, wanting to put up this, on the water expansion, that you all were gonna do it in-house, no expense to the residents of that area. Probably 3/8 of a mile or half a mile, you all were going to incur that expense in order to help get the water in that area originally started. Once we received the funding, and we were denied the CDBG grant. When I met with you a couple of months ago, you said you all were still good for that,
Absolutely,
if we could secure our part.
absolutely.
We all wanna be good neighbors, but I agree with everyone in here. I don't think we need new landfills coming in and, the county not being involved in it, knowing what's gonna be brought in. Because that one is listed as a class 1 up there. And class 1 does take in low level radiation, correct? Okay.
Mr. Commissioner, if you don't mind, I'll give a little bit more detail on that. We're part of what's referred to as the BSRF program. It's an EPA guided program where some disposal outfits are approved for low-level radioactive waste from radioactive facilities. But it goes through a very rigorous screening process. The EPA is in direct control of it. And as a result, what we have for our radiation scanners at the landfill are some of the lowest we have as a company nationwide. I have landfills that are not part of the BSRF program. Their scanners are set higher than what we accept. So your average landfill will miss what we diligently test and manage.
Thank you. I think we will be submitting a resolution, adopting the Jackson law. And it should have no impact on you all.
It's actually
Yeah, I think we all agree on that.
probably beneficial for them.
Contract.
I mean, it stops some competition from coming in, correct? And it-
Yeah, to
in
give
essence-
some perspective on where we're at with this, our permit was issued in 1982. The Jackson law's retroactive date ends in 1989. It would not be applicable to us, except for possibly the horizontal expansion. The landfill is currently permitted to 86 acres plus the 16 acres of pre-existing Hawkins County landfill. We own 364 contiguous acres of land. If we were to go for a horizontal expansion at some point, obviously with over a century of life, that's probably not really likely. But if we were to go for that, that would be a potential concern, but even then, I think we'd probably still be exempt. So from our standpoint, there's no direct impact on us. I will add, just to give some clarification, TDEC does not allow special waste from greater than 50 miles from state borders. So Tennessee is not going to receive a large amount of special waste from out of
Could
state.
you repeat that?
I didn't hear that. How's that wrong behind?
The TDEC special waste approval process does not allow for special waste from greater than 50 miles from the state border.
Okay, we have a state border 500 miles from here though, so that's still,
Right.
there's a lot of special
Right.
waste that could come.
But it greatly reduces, bringing special waste in by rail, for example, which is something that does happen in other states. There are protections already in place to some degree. Also, as far as groundwater, our groundwater is tested semi-annually. We have a network of groundwater monitoring wells. They continually test within compliance numbers. The only detections we've had are inorganic metals, which are native to the soil. The primary problem for drinking water in the landfill is E. coli, likely because the streams, which were spoken previously, are losing streams, i.e. streams seeps in the groundwater. We're willing to put the pipeline in because we just think it's good for its health, bottled water.
The chair would like to recognize Ms. Greer again.
I appreciate the Republic being good neighbors and supplementing the water program to get. But, one reason that we're here, that we're concerned, is several years ago, there was a dye test performed up there, and we had a lot of paperwork where the dye came up in the well water on the Cooper's property, And Republic or BFI at that time did, supply a water line for that area. And, you know, what, I would like some reassurance that that's not going on right now with the wells. I mean, could you explain that?
I'm not familiar with the previous instance you're referring to. I do know we put some water pipeline in the past. But we do pretty detailed groundwater sampling as part of our site permit with the state and submit to the state. In that, the only detections we've had are inorganics that are associated with local soil. They're not found in leachate, so it doesn't really fingerprint back to the landfill accurately. I believe, and again, this needs working of recollection because I wasn't around during the previous instance. During a construction event, they had a stormwater control failure where sediment was released off site, and that was clean soil. Leave them buying a pond across the street as part of cleanup. But that's my only understanding on that pipeline.
So are you aware of the dye test?
No,
that was performed a few years ago?
We performed a pretty thorough dye test for our design hydro testing as part of, I think it was the 2014 modification to the site. In that, we found there wasn't a substantial migration pathway from the site.
So you would be all right, drinking the water from wells around there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I'm just
Well,
asking.
I'll
Totally
caveat
understand.
on that.
Yes.
I would agree with drinking except for the fact I know there's E. coli in it. Now, I will say, I grew up in the middle of nowhere at dairy farm, so I drank well with E. coli at best. But
Sure.
the landfill's not the source of the E. coli. The wildlife and agriculture likely is.
I know Congressman Rowe was offered a drink from up there, and he, from one of the local wells, and he just wasn't thirsty at that time.
That is very
We're just
correct.
trying to protect our
Again,
citizens and
be
our
far from the first one
environment.
I drank water with E. coli, I'll be honest. But,
Okay.
yeah, that's the driving concern I would have for water.
I'd like to thank Commissioner Housewright and Goins for coming out. Commissioner Brewer, have you got something else?
Yes, of course, I guess it's gonna be probably when Atlanta probably puts this on tape, we're not probably gonna be able to hear
It's very
a
difficult.
lot of what's going on there. You know, probably need to be speaking into the mic when you're talking. But I didn't understand, when you said a while ago, did you say that was only tested semi-annually?
I did double check if it's semi-annual or quarterly. I believe we do our testing quarterly. I think our reports are semi-annual.
Your reports are semi-annual?
Yes, what goes to the TDEC. It's referred to as a semi-annual report. But we test at least every 6 months. We test other things at the site much more often than that, but the groundwater monitoring reports are every 6 months. And they go to TDEC and should be on file with TDEC data reviewer.
I'm not into the waste business and don't know a whole lot about it, but I think if I live close with your neighbor there, I'd want that monitored a whole lot closer than quarterly.
Well, I can say I am your neighbor. I'm actually just about 3 miles, west of you, I guess, so, I will say that I had my water, cause I have a well, and, I had my water tested by McCollum, just for other reasons, and, they told me I had the cleanest water that they had ever found in a well.
And how far are you from?
I'm about 3 miles west. So, again, I had other than some, hard water, which is actually what I was testing for, but so, I was pleased with that, and I'm not far from you at all.
Yeah, private wells are a complex issue. If you don't drill deep enough, you can get some runoff from above.
I think I'm 185 feet.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Tappy.
This 362 acres here, y'all own, how much are you using of that right now?
I guess it would depend on what you define as use. We're permitted for 86 acres.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I apologize. It would depend on what you define as use. We're permitted for 86 acres of it for solid waste disposal. We've constructed about 65. We'll be building the rest of it as the site goes on. We aim to build the cell roughly every 3 to 4 years, and progressively build out.
So you say you're hoping to expand every 3 to 4 years?
To build a new cell, yes.
But now you was talking about vertical a while ago, is that, you still gonna do that?
Yes.
Plus expand on,
Effectively, if you picture the landfill as a contiguous hill, every several years, we'll build another section in front of it. Then you fill that and you lap it back on the previous. And after you build a few of those, you build enough additional space on top where you go up and you go in at the top again. And you keep building it out, maintaining the permitted side slopes. In this case, 3-to-1 with benches. We're looking to move future cells to 3-to-1 without benches. And by 3-to-1, I mean 3 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical.
I might explain too that the Jackson Law is not an automatic veto. It simply says you have to hold a hearing, they have to present certain evidence and so forth. And if an appeal can be made for the de novo review in Chancery Court, which means he looks at it again in its entirety. So it's not, if we say no, that doesn't automatically mean that that's it under Jackson Law. But, so they go take it to court, and the court can decide.
I think that's been tried before, and the Jackson Law prevailed. Anything else?
Mr. Phillips, if I understand this correctly, with this Jackson Law, let's say they wanted to go into the middle of Seguinsville, within the city limits of Seguinsville, and put a landfill there, this would not.
You mean
affect that.
separate from the 362 acres that it have no connection?
Well, let's say a different company wanted to come in.
Well, now that's a different matter.
Okay.
This is a contract with the Carter's Valley landfill.
Yeah,
So we don't have a contract with everybody else to say, we won't enact that law, you won't come in.
yeah.
So, no, that's not a law.
If a totally new land
That's,
recycling company wanted to come into the middle of Seguinsville within the city limits,
well, now that's the city issue.
yeah. This would not affect that one way or the other.
Well, the city can enact the law too, as I recall it.
The city could, but they would have to do that separately
Yeah,
from the county.
right. We'll only be dealing with outside.
The city, Commissioner Barrett, would have to pass it, and then the county commission would still have to approve it by 2/3 majority.
Totally irrelevant.
Okay.
It would never happen. There's no land-ins are going.
As well as the city commission,
Yes.
do their.
Anything else? Charles, that's for you.
Real quick, actually, I will add, we do an open house every year, generally in October. You're by all means welcome to come. We do landfill tours, Scott cooks burgers. I personally view our landfill as, a landfill with some historic challenges, but otherwise very nice state-of-the-art level. If anyone has any questions, by all means, please let us know.
I have your numbers. And I try to attend. Try to keep up on it a little bit. Anything else? Jeff, you got anything?
No, you guys covered it all. I just need a business card, so I spell your name right.
Like I say, on behalf of everyone here, thank you. With that said, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we do a
Adjourn?
resolution,
Oh, okay.
we've got to do a resolution, make a motion to do the resolution.
Okay.
second.
Motion,
Vote on the full commission.
the motion has been made and seconded.
What is your, be clear on your motion, please.
Enact the Jackson law. Enact the
To
Jackson
draw a
law.
resolution up, and submit it this month for approval at our December 17th meeting. Motion has been made and seconded.
And exempting the Carter's Valley landfill. from this
Accepting,
law.
yes.
Just
Accepting
adopted
that.
the Jackson law. Any other discussion on this?
Who second?
Commissioner Jesse. Okay, motion been made, second, any other discussion? All those in favor of this, let it be known, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries.
So Commissioner Alice, it will be.
It'll be submitted today.
You will talk to
Yes.
Ms. Martin and do that.
Yes,
Then,
yes,
we've got that.
yes, we have.
We-
It'll be submitted Nothing else?
I've got a comment,
Okay.
since I served on the budget committee, and you said this one was named Scott.
Can't pronounce it last name.
Is there any possibility that we could sit down and renegotiate some of the terms of money as far as the landfill the county's paying right now?
Well, that's not really our deal.
Yeah,
but-
Let that there.
I move the trucks and, deal with the landfill themselves. You know, we have, obviously some ghosts of the Brooks family that we're still dealing with. That's kinda handcuffing us a little bit to be able to do that. You know, if we could approach them and, you know, try to get some dialogue open that way, that would definitely help us.
I agree with Commissioner Brewer, we could certainly stand some help on the taxes that we receive.
You know, we're paying $600 and something thousand a year.
And getting 34, I think, back.
That's beside the point, but, you know,
Well,
I'd just like to see us be able to negotiate, maybe sit down and negotiate something that since the county, right now, we've had to raise taxes in the last year, wheel tax, and, you know, this is you represent your company, I represent people that live in my district, and if I can do anything to make their taxes cheaper, then I need to try to do that. And I appreciate y'all being good stewards. What I understand is meeting, you all have been good stewards, and that's what it's all about. You know, we could sit here this meeting and, you know, y'all said that landfill's gonna be there 80 years from now. You know, and I could, a lot of people have attitude, well, you know, I'm not gonna live that long anyway, I don't care, but, you know, I do care. And that's why I'm here on the county commission, I do care. And, we just need to make sure that we do what's best for the people and for our environment. And I appreciate y'all trying to do that.
And Mr. Scott, if you get an opportunity to talk to the higher ups, see if we can get another half mile out of them going on out there. Certainly help.
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you. With nothing else, do I hear a motion this meeting be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
I'll say,
All those in favor? Opposed likewise? Okay. Thank you, everyone. With that said, now we will move into the Parks Committee, and we will ask Madam Secretary, please call the roll, please.
Danny Allen,
Here.
Jeff Barrett,
Here.
Rick Brewer,
here,
Linda Davis, Raymond Jesse,
Here.
Hannah Speaks,
Here.
Donnie Talley, Chairman, all members are present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect so. With that said, we do have.
Oh, my pleasure.
Your motion to approve the minutes that we.
Oh, that's my pleasure.
I make the motion to approve the minutes from November 5th meeting.
Thank you. All second. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know, saying aye.
Mr. Chairman, do you need me for this?
No, sir. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Mr. Yoder.
I apologize, but Nancy says we are good to go on.
Yes,
On that resolution, since I got here just a little bit late, I just wanted to make sure.
yes.
Okay.
It was unanimous on this committee to forward the resolution. So yes.
Okay. I got it.
Nanny and myself.
Do what?
Yes, who's sponsoring?
And who's name is that?
Mine and yours.
That'll be fine. Okay, on the Parks Committee, I'm trying to find the agenda. I remember last month, thank you, Rick. We've approved the minutes, so we're down to the shelter reservations. I think Mayor Lee is involved with this. We discussed last month about, doing all the shelter scheduling here at the mayor's office. No one should be handling money in the county that's not bonded. And Mayor Lee agrees that his office here will do it. And he's currently working on some things, and if
all I know is that, Mayor Lee's, in agreement to do the reservations, and his office to take care of the money. When I say Mayor Lee, his office, I should say. And, I think we just need to go on record as approving that, because we talked about, that last month, about what we could do, maybe to change it. And, since I think he's done already pretty much took action, we don't need to take any action, I don't think, other than, we might go on record saying that we approve it, I would,
Do I, you're anyone want to entertain just a recommendation, not a motion, just a recommendation?
I recommend that this committee, go on record as approving his actions on that.
On the mayor's office,
Mayor's office,
taking care of all the money to show the reservations up there.
the action Pete done taken.
Okay. Have a motion, just for, recommendation purposes only. Do I have a second on it?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, let it be known, saying aye. Aye.
Can I say one thing right here?
Yes.
This is gonna come out probably in the news, and, it has, the people at the park have not been made aware of this. And if it would be possible that they be made aware before it hits the newspaper, so that they don't see it in that manner.
Okay,
You're talking about groundskeeper and so forth, people work there.
With the people that work there are not made aware of this at this point.
That being said, it just went on Facebook Live, so it perhaps.
Well, there's only 3 people watching. I doubt if Joe's watching. I don't see him on here, so. But he might hear from somebody. You don't know.
I'm not sure if Mayor Lee hasn't already told him.
He hasn't.
So, we will let it go into effect then and them know about it.
It's already, there won't be any more up there.
Well, what we can do is, tomorrow we can notify them in the morning. We'll make an effort to notify them in the morning that this action will take place, effective as of tomorrow. So, I am in the process of trying to get all the information, the reservations cards, the calendar that she keeps, her receipt books, her deposits, because the deposits are not generic deposits, they're directly to the park. It's got the park's name on it. Even though it goes in the general fund, we do try to keep that in some form. So we just need to be sure that they are aware of this, and either me or somebody here will have to go up tomorrow and get those items from her.
Ms. Roberts, I want to thank you and Daniel Horn with the Soil Conversation Office on what you have helped spearhead up there on the, securing those rocks, and, some funding maybe if we needed on the, soil erosion on the banks. I think we've had 85 dump trucks of, 6 to 12 inch surge rock hauled in up there. Don't know how far it will go when we start down through there. But have you got any news that you can share with us on the, bidding it out?
I do have some news for that. We were all prepared to the bid was ready to go out. However, the weather has not cooperated, and you know that we've had quite a few rainy days, and the land that is near the river that we would have to approach with heavy equipment is not stable enough for us to use the equipment right now, nor is the level of the river. It's too high.
Right.
So based on that and the fact that it's getting colder and you actually have to be in the river to do this project, we're gonna probably have to put this off until spring.
Have you had any,
Because of that, we did not go forward with the bid, because of that, because we don't, at this point, we don't know if anything else is gonna change, because of the weather. Anything could happen between now and then. And ideally, when we first started this project, and I think that, Daniel Horn is one that really pushed this, that he was hoping that we would be able to do this in the fall, because August, September, and October are usually the driest months, and the water level is a lot lower in those months. But he did say that if since we didn't get to do it this year, if we could try to do it in the spring, but you know that we have spring rains and the water level sometimes increases also in the spring. So it may be spring, but if not, it will have to be probably in the fall. We're hoping for spring. We'll just have to see. But we've got, everything is secured. We just got to get the bid out and get the contractor. And once that's done, we'll be ready to go to work when the weather permits.
Thank you for your involvement.
Have we, yeah, I understand, I think I asked this at the last meeting, Mr. Horn is not getting paid to do this. Was there anything said about, thanking him for what he's done?
Commissioner Alvis has mentioned that numerous times, that we need to thank him. You know, of course, he knows this office thanks him every day.
Right.
We're grateful for him because we couldn't do this without him.
Why don't we do like a commendation during the, commission meeting?
Well, if we get a commission meeting, that'd be fine, but we could go on record also as,
Yeah.
you know, thanking, but if we could get him to a commissioner meeting.
Well, I would certainly support recognizing him, along with Ms. Roberts. Now, she can sit back there and not done anything, she's been involved in this, and, I'll take my hats off to both of them. If you wanna put it in a form of a motion, just to recognize Daniel at our next meeting,
I'll make a motion that we recognize him at our next meeting.
okay.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All those in favor, let me know. Well, I guess we might need to discuss it. I think we're all in agreement on it, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, let me know, say aye. Opposed likewise. Okay.
I have one other thing. Mayor Lee has, talked about, and I think everybody that knows Mayor Lee, he wants everybody to be treated alike. And, he has, talked to me a little bit about, Sheriff, we've got some individuals that's on part-time work, and then we've got individuals that's on seasonal, as considered seasonal employees. And if Atlanta can explain that to this committee, you know, Atlanta, you might want to explain, there's a little difference.
We do have, in the parks and in other areas, we have what we call part-time people. And they may be part-time as you call them in as you need somebody, and they may work an hour or two or a day or two. We also have what we call full-time, part-time, and they have a regular schedule. They work part-time, but they're on a regular schedule. They may come in every Monday and work every Monday, but they're just considered a part-time employee. A seasonal employee works for a season, so they may start, for instance, our seasonal employee that works in the park begins their employment at the last week of March, because we're getting the park ready to open for the summer season. So that employee is a seasonal employee that comes in and works full-time beginning the last week of March and works full-time through, I think, November the 30th would be the last day that person would work. So they're actually working every day those months, and that's considered a seasonal employee. And we determine that not just because that's something that we just figure out on our own. Those are things that we can do based on the chart of accounts for our accounting department. And it's a little easier for our accounting department to have some idea of, you know, how they're working and that sort of thing. We have discussed changing that seasonal employee to a part-time, and that way we can set the hours that we want that person to work, the number of days we want that person to work, and that could include that particular season, or it could include all year round.
Does that not also include that a seasonal worker is able to draw unemployment?
A seasonal worker, when that person goes off duty, she can apply for unemployment compensation, and she can draw her unemployment.
But part-time?
Part-time cannot.
Right, and that's, I don't understand why we got them seasonal. that's costing us more money in seasonal worker,
And they're both part-time.
and they're both part-time.
Mr. Chairman,
It's
Yes.
terminology.
Mayor Lee doesn't need her blessings to do anything, but I think he would like to have her blessings, and I'd like to make a motion that we change any seasonal employee to part-time.
I second.
Okay, discussion. How many?
And, I mean, that's just a recommendation.
Yes,
We,
yes,
you know,
yes.
we don't have that authority, it's the mayor.
Right. How many employees would this affect?
In the mayor's,
No, in the county.
in the whole county,
Yes. Part-time
This
versus
is
seasonal.
just concerning the park.
Okay, the parks only, okay.
well, in
Okay.
the parks only, we only have one employee who is a seasonal employee.
Okay.
All, the only other part-time we have is a part-timer.
Okay, we have, and your motion is just to go on record as changing it.
We support Mayor Lee, and that, you know, 'cause it's his call, he's the one that does all of that, to start with, you know, but I think he would like to have her blessings, and I think let's, you know, go on record as we support that.
So a motion has been made and second, that we support Mayor Lee on his decisions concerning this, part-time seasonal help. At his discretion, whatever he does it for, correct? Okay, does everybody understand the motion? Been made and second, all those in favor, Commissioner
There
Brewers,
might be some discussion on that.
will there be any discussion?
Yeah, I got something Commissioner Talley touched on there just briefly. Now, you mentioned, drawing unemployment, and if it affected a seasonal or a part-time person, would you care to go back and?
Well, if you're employed as a seasonal worker, that entitles you to the right to file for unemployment.
As a seasonal?
As a seasonal, part-time employee, if you're legal or
Can't file for it.
hired under a part-time, then you're not,
You can't.
allowed
Okay.
to file for unemployment. So it just makes sense to me, it's the same category, and it would save the county money,
Save the county money.
Well,
And we would be treating everybody fairly.
treat
treating
everybody the same.
everybody fair.
Yes, Yes.
No reasons, you know, to do anything one person, not do it somebody else, so it just makes more common sense.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure
Yeah,
I missed it first
Oh,
time
that's fine.
around, so that's why I want to come back to that.
Any other discussion?
Don't think I did.
Ms. Roberts, let's do a roll call on this vote, please.
Donnie Talley,
yes.
Raymond Jesse,
Yes.
Hannah Speaks,
Yes.
Glenda Davis,
Yes.
Danny Alves,
Yes.
Jeff Barrett,
Yes.
Reed Brewer.
Yes.
Have a unanimous yes vote.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'll just have a comment, and I don't know that it means emotions or anything, but last time when we talked about moving the shelter reservations in-house here at the mayor's office, it was my intent by doing that, I would like to be noble and say that I was going to do it to save the county some money, but I actually want that money to be left within the parks budget, to update our playground and extend our playground equipment. So I wanna make sure that we don't just reduce the budget by the money that we're gonna save with this position.
That sounds good, but I think ultimately the budget committee would have that.
I think you need to bring that to the budget committee, do a resolution for the budget committee, whatever.
I think we have two here on the budget committee, so.
Well, if we take the amount of money that's in the budget now for that position, and we determine that the number of hours that she's needing to work, it may not work out a whole lot different anyway, because you're not gonna save a whole lot other than the time that she's not working in November,
I
December,
think-
January.
I think what Hannah was referring to is what money was collected on the shelters, is that not right? That was going toward the playground equipment, is that?
Well, that, and it was my understanding that we'd be eliminating the position.
You're not eliminating the position, you're just moving it from one category to another.
Well,
Her position will
that's-
still be there.
I'm confused on that. If this person is not doing reservations up there, and they're being done here, what's that person's job?
Well, you're gonna have to, somebody is gonna have to, number one, that person opens and closes the gates, okay, number one. That person also cleans the bathrooms, stocks the bathrooms, orders of supplies, those type things. So there are things that that person is going to do. Now, if you're going to eliminate her position altogether, then that motion has to be changed.
We're not gonna eliminate it altogether.
We can't-
The county mayor is the only one that can do
The
that.
mayor's the one that does that.
And that's why we gave him our blessing on whatever he
Whatever he
chooses to do.
chooses to do.
Yes.
And it may end up being more work.
I don't think that it will end up being more. I don't know, what we'll need to do is, we'll need to sit down and determine how many days that person is needed, because if you're looking in the months of April through September, those are our busiest months, and that means that we've got hundreds of people in that park every single day. And so, that means that the bathrooms have to be cleaned more than once a day, they have to be stocked more than once a day. So who's gonna do that? The two maintenance people up there don't have time, because they're taking care of two parks. They're doing all the maintenance, all the grounds maintenance, that sort of thing, being sure that everybody is obeying the rules. So what we will end up having to do is just to change that position of the seasonal employee. We'll have to probably change her job description and determine the number of hours that is needed for her to perform her work, and then fit it in within the budget that's already there. Now, if there's extra money there when we determine that, then that money can be reappropriated and put somewhere else in the budget, if the budget committee agrees to do that. But we'll have to figure out what the number of hours that we expect her to work to do her job. Because if you don't have that person, who's gonna clean the bathrooms, and who's going to stock the bathrooms, and those type things?
I know we were there in the spring when the prom was going on. I guess it was the prom last year. And, I was talking to her, and I was asking her how things were going and everything. And while we were talking, she had to leave the conversation 3 times and go down and check on that one bathroom, because these kids that was having a birthday party, they kept running in there and something kept happening, and she had to go back there. And we had to start a conversation about the park 3 times
Right.
to get it done.
But when you've got that many people, you're gonna have issues with bathrooms. You're especially gonna have issues when you've got a lot of kids and
Yeah,
just being mischievous.
If that employee, you change her from, part-time, she may not choose to stay with the job if she can't get unemployment.
It's possible.
So, if she doesn't, that would be a position that'd probably be hard to fill.
That's solely in Mayor Lee's.
I understand.
Yes,
I just
we just gave him our blessing.
that's his,
Anything else?
that's his choice.
Go ahead, Mr. Jeff.
Real quick, I just wanted to bring up something, I don't wanna take up too much of y'all's time, but I wanted to see if it would be possible for y'all, if y'all are interested in maybe doing a dog park at at Laurel Run Park, where the ball diamond is. Nobody ever uses that ball diamond, and I've never seen anybody use it, but I've seen people with their dogs running loose down there, which they have dogs that mind them, which is a good thing. It comes back when most people walk them. But I just thought it might be interesting to find out how much one will cost, and I don't want you all to spend any money on it, but I bet if you got to put one on there, that it would be well used, because I've seen other places where they are well used, and maybe you could get a sponsor like PetSmart or a veterinarian office or something to put up money for it and put a sign up and say courtesy of whoever. But I just think I've seen other county-owned parks that have dog parks There's one I stayed at in Winston-Salem called Tanglewood Park. And if y'all ever wanna look for good ideas about improvements to make at your park, I would look at their website, cause they got a lot more space, but they do a lot with what they have there. But that one thing that they had was they had a dog park that would be perfectly fit where our ball diamond is. And, the ball diamond don't get used, so why not put a dog park if you got people running their dogs loose anyways?
It is dead space, I agree. What would we have to do, Jeff, to?
I reckon, you know, you'd have to, find out who installs and then
What is it? What's
ask for a
inside?
quote. It's a fence.
Yeah, I mean, we've already got the fence.
Yeah, you put a fence, and then what they do is they have a buffer fenced in area, so you go into a enclosed area and close the gate behind you, and then you go in and then you're in the dog area. And then some of them, the one in Winston-Salem had a small dog area separated by a big dog area, which was bigger. And then around the outside of the fence line, they had, benches within a good distance where you could go and sit down with your dog, and they had a place where you can get little plastic baggies to pick up doo-doo, and that one had a watering hole too, where you could pump water out and water your dog too. But I know that's a lot to ask when you're doing the land reclamation. You guys got a ton on your plate, but I just thought I'd plant that seed in your head and see if y'all might be interested in it.
Rogersville's currently in the process of putting in a dog park.
We've looked at once before a dog park at Laurel Run Park, and there was a lot of controversy over that for one thing, and we looked at the city of Kingsport. We went to the city of Kingsport to see what all they did. It's more than just building a fence and putting your dogs in there, you know, when you actually get down to it, because most everybody that I talked to that had dog parks, actually they were required to register their dog, the dog owner, their contact information. They had to be sure that they were vaccinated and that sort of thing. We had to have their certifications. So there's a lot more to it than just putting up a fence and that sort of thing. I'm not saying I'm against that, but it's a little bit different than just putting up a fence. But we'd also looked at that area for some additional play areas there that we didn't have the money to actually do. So we had looked at a couple of things, and we had some people come and make some presentations. And Danny, I think you were on the park committee at that time when we looked at a couple of things that we thought that space might be available for. Again, I'm not saying I'm against the dog park. I'm just saying that there's more to it than just having a fence.
What about liability?
That's another issue. That's one of the things that the city of Kingsport wanted to be sure that they had proper identification of the dogs and the owners, and if they were actually vaccinated and
Does that fall back on the county?
It would fall back on the county if they were not.
Commissioner Clance, would you be willing to see what Rogersville's doing and get some figures, do's and don'ts?
They're using existing fence from the skate park, and it's got a pad already.
Nancy probably got the answers for you. I mean, I would do it, but just check with Nancy Barr.
Their insurance, the city insurance, because I'll go to those meetings too, you know, so I know about that. Their city insurance gave them the okay, no extra charge for that liability.
Jeff, I can't remember, when you go to Kingsport Dog Park, do you register your
I
dog?
don't know. I went there one time. I don't live in the city, and so I went. That's the one by the Mets Stadium.
It is.
And I thought I was just driving by, and I thought I'd check it out with my dog, and it was locked, and you had to put a number in it. So they do have it like that. But then you go other places, and they don't. So I don't know. This big park in Winston-Salem's inside their city limits, and that place is fancy. And you didn't have to have anything. You just walked through the gate. But you know, I guess maybe they got a lot of money though. They can afford better insurance.
Ms. Roberts, would you be willing to ask Nancy Barker to check into that and try to come up with a figure, if we can pursue it or not?
Yes.
Thank you. And then Jeff, hopefully when we have another committee meeting, when she can present to us what she's found.
And I'd be happy to help try to raise money for it too. You know, go hit up some PetSmart and some vet offices and things like that. My dog's not smart enough to stay when I tell it to stay. If it sees a rabbit, it's gone.
Thank you, Commissioner, I didn't recognize you a while ago. Anything else?
Didn't mean to put more work on you.
Just got, two comments that's been brought to my attention over, over the summer and stuff. One individual had mentioned about maybe in the summertime, instead of the park closing at 8 to maybe see if we could extend the hours during the summer months. And the other thing I've heard is on the shelters, there's like a drop off from the level of the shelter to the ground level. There's been some concerns expressed about maybe people stepping on the edge and maybe breaking an ankle or spraining an ankle where the concrete is up, 6, 8 inches higher than the grass. That might be something I would look at, in the future.
This committee has had a couple meetings up
Is
there.
that not something our insurance has brought to, is that insurance said anything about that?
No. And we have inspections periodically from this agency called Partas, and that's a state agency that inspects our parks, because we have grant money there, and they've never mentioned that before. The only one that we've had to really be careful with, there's one at St. Clair Park that drops off, and we keep a fence on it. But that's the only one that we really have to, to deal with. If it's 6 or 8 inches, most of the time they don't consider that to be a hazard or a safety issue. We've not had that to deal with. And, we try to keep gravel or rock up as close as we can, but certain times of the year when you've got heavy rains, it does wash, and so you're constantly trying to put the rocks back up there with them. So, it is a nature park. We try to be as safe as we can, but at the same time, it's not like walking on the sidewalk.
I think if it's over 7 inches, that's considered a step. If it's over 7, I think there could be some problems there. So I don't know what the height is on that. I think the law allows you up to 7 inches.
If you can see which shelters it is, and maybe relate it to Ms. Roberts' one. We have gravel in our budget, that's taken up our own time.
And then the extension requirement.
I'll second.
What, we didn't finish asking.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you still had the floor.
Oh, the other one was, possibility of extending the hours of the park during the summer months from, I guess basically, the issue is it's 8 o'clock and it's still daylight outside, and people are still having cookouts and things like that, but they have to shut down so they can get out, so the caretaker can lock the gate.
What would you, if you was going to pick what your hours be?
Summertime, I'd say at least
9.
9 o'clock,
The winter hours, 6. It's dark at
at least
6.
6 in the wintertime, yeah.
Well, it's dark right now at 5 o'clock, so right now we're closing the park at 4 o'clock.
Okay, right now they're closing at 4.
It graduates, in the spring it graduates and goes up to the number of hours, and then in the fall it starts to decrease again.
And you ain't got no problem.
And I wouldn't be so much on the winter hours extending that as I would be the summer hours, Cause back up there, especially while we're in the park up inside that mountain, it gets slick real quick.
Yes.
Freezing over real quick up there.
Motion made, second to adjourn. All those in favor, let it
You
be
didn't
known.
make any recommendation on the extension of hours then?
Well, you'd have to go back and, be sure there's money there to cover the extended hours, as far as the budget committee, but, if it's possible, yeah, I'd like to see it go at least till 9 o'clock in the summertime.
So you want to just say that we're discussing it at this point until we know more information?
Yeah, because those 2 members of the budget committee, if y'all don't care to look at it.
There shouldn't be any more expense associated with it.
Well, would that be right as far as the, park?
Might be some,
Might be a little.
Additional hour.
A couple years ago, you had a problem with people getting stuck up on the mountain after dark and getting lost. And that's why they like to have it still daylight, so they know if people are still there and if they need to go hunt them.
That's a good point. When you close an hour before dark, they can tell the vehicles out there and they can we'll discuss it at a later date, I guess. Motion made and second to adjourn, all those in favor, let
Who made the motion and second, I'm sorry, I was talking.
Commissioner Hall.
Me,
Hal and Davis.
I think it's so much.
all those in favor, let it know, saying aye.
Aye.
Likewise.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.